Welcome to the Forge, my wanton wildlings. I'm your creepsmith, and I hope you like my work.
Well, hello there, wonderful wildlings. Some folks, it seems, are driven to actions that seem to the rest of us pointless, counterproductive, or even flat-out evil. There are those, however, who can not only get away with this, but flourish in doing so. Such is the point of today's little twofer, that which deals with compulsions and crimes. Murderous Confessions of a Gazer by Stupid Dial-Up and Bunnies from the Creepypasta Wiki. I am dying. To be more succinct, I am about to die. This confession is just my way of attempting to make peace with whatever options that I have on the other side. It's a worthless, typical attempt at salvation from someone who truly does not deserve it. Truth be told, if I weren't about to die, I wouldn't be saying any of this. I love what I do too much. Plus, well, I'd be killed by my people shortly after saying this to you all. Ironically, as menacing as I have been for the last 40 years or so, at the end, I find myself more pathetic than my weakest victim. There's an old saying that information is power. It's one of the truest things that you'll ever hear. And I was very powerful before my illness. Not just in the way one might describe someone as powerful. See, my power didn't come from great wealth or brute force or political success. Even I'm not that narcissistic. My power came from harnessing the mundane and the minutiae of life. I became powerful through observation and routine, through patience and planning, cunning and camouflage. I, and other people like me, visit your home almost every day, and you all, well, you hardly notice. We, or as you'll come to call us, the Gazers, know your most intimate details. We know everything about you. When you're home, when you're not, who you're having an affair with, when you're on the rag, how many children that you have, which rooms they stay in, how often you remember to lock your backyard gates, what type of medicine you take, what you like to eat and drink, who you owe money to, what type of animals you have, all of that. Some of you have bought us Christmas presents, baked us pies, even allowed us into your homes and into your lives. You've done all of this without realizing that we are the reason that you can't find your mother's pearls, why you had your car stolen, lost your beloved pet, found your father dead, or your mother raped, or your sibling kidnapped, and, well, you get what I'm saying. We, the Gazers, are at your service. We're garbage men, gas and electric meter readers, grass cutters, etc. I was your mailman. The Gazers communicate just like you do. We email, post on Reddit and 4chan, make phone calls, etc. We've just been so successful at hiding in public the transfer of the most fantastic details has never been simpler. The most unsuspecting phrases, like you'll find in short stories like these, or on message boards, often mean the most sinister and titillating things to a Gazer. Going to the store, she wore a short red dress. It's time to put the baby down for a nap. Having roast for dinner, finally taking the kids out for ice cream, all mean much different things to me and to my kind than they normally would to any of you. We identify ourselves by the nicknames that we have for our specialties. If you enjoyed a little B&E or a little stalking while you stole, you were a thrifty. Enjoyed a more professional approach by selling of information that you've collected to interested buyers, then you sold Avon. Kidnap women, children, and or pets, we called you a tooth fairy. And as for me, and people like me, they call us Picassos. Funny thing is, none of us ever saw our marks until the day the deed was done. That's what makes the system work. If 5 people in the last year come up butchered in my neighborhood or on my mail route, well, I'm not gonna be in business long. Not like I was for the past 40 years. No. You see, our power came from the information we all collected, and the better notes I took, the more information was shared back with me. Better the information, better the pay, whether it be monetary or a fun fact about my next victim. It was always easy to find garage or estate sales online and to collect information. Information was currency. And I was a rich, rich man. Anyway, I'm not telling you this to brag or to relive my exploits. My hope is that by sharing this information, maybe I'll save enough lives, spare enough heartache and despair to get some sort of reprieve in the next life. Kind of a ridiculous thought, now that I'm here thinking back on all that I've done. Let me leave you all with one piece of advice. Next time you see a service worker near your home, smile at him or her. No normal person is going to be in a good enough spirit to smile after walking in the hot sun, picking up 30 pounds of your shit for 6 straight hours. If that person smirks back at you, congratulations, you just spotted a gazer. But if that gazer smiles wide, well, you may have just welcomed a tooth fairy, or, equally a horrifying proposition, a Picasso into your home. In 1998, one of the most disturbing discoveries of the 20th century was made in a small town in the state of Alabama. During that summer, a few residents in the city of Roebuck alerted the authorities to the presence of a decaying, rusty trailer located on the outskirts of the city, just a few yards from a small residential area. Occasionally, faint screams and groans could be heard coming from the inside of a seemingly abandoned trailer during the late afternoon hours of the day, which most of the residents of the small neighborhood mistook for children playing, until one day, an elderly woman living alone in one of the homes grew paranoid about the distressing noises and called the police. When they arrived, the authorities quickly began to search the small trailer. Upon first glance, it did indeed seem to be deserted. The only furnishings found inside were a slightly rusted metal folding chair, a stained flower-patterned couch that held the strong smell of mildew, and a surprisingly new-looking patio table. To the police squad's befuddlement, there seemed to be nothing too suspicious inside of the trailer. The same did not go for the small space underneath it, however. Under a poorly covered mound of dirt, a small briefcase was excavated from the bottom of the old trailer. Inside it, the authorities discovered 14 VHS tapes with no labels or stickers whatsoever. The content of the tapes was pretty much exactly the same, but they all had different people featured in them. The tapes all started out in the same fashion, an immediate fade from black that revealed a small child strapped into the same metal chair that was found in the trailer. The children all seemed to have the same terrified expression on their faces as the camera started to focus on them, their eyes all red and sunken in. Despite the black duct tape placed over their mouths, they could all be heard sobbing. A few seconds into the video, the child in question would suddenly look up and start crying even harder than before. The shadow of the cameraman was always seen in this portion of the videos, and he seemed to be holding up a small animal of some sort. Judging by the shape of the shadow that its body would cast and the small whimpers it made, it was most likely a rabbit or something similar. The cameraman held the animal above his head for a short portion of time before abruptly swinging it into the air and then throwing it down onto the ground with such force that it let out a horrible shriek. You could hear a few bones breaking and snapping as well. As you may imagine, this only made the child cry and scream, but the sound was muffled and barely audible. As the child was screaming, the cameraman picked up the still-breathing rabbit and played around with it, swinging its limp little body back and forth and bouncing it up and down. You could see a large amount of blood coming out of it. In the middle of this, the cameraman would always ask, "What's wrong? I thought you loved animals." The child would not respond. He or she merely sobbed quietly. The cameraman then took an obviously fraudulent, sad tone of voice. "Aw, there. You can still play with the bunny after I'm done playing with it, okay?" Upon saying this, the man took out a large hunting knife and immediately drove it into the rabbit's stomach. The shrieks and squeals of the terrified creature seemed to cause mixed reactions in the children. In a few of the videos, the children seemed to faint dead away at this horrific sight. Others only sat there and tried to scream. In the worst case, they saw a small girl who seemed to be around the age of 6 apparently vomited, but since her mouth was taped closed, a bit of it came out of her nostrils, which made her scream in agony, and then she seemed to go limp as her eyes rolled back in her head. The video cut prematurely in this case. For the children that stayed awake, the cameraman tossed the hunting knife on the floor beside him and then swung the dead rabbit above his head like a helicopter blade. Blood and innards would spray all over the inside of the trailer and all over the terrified children as they continued to cry even harder. Their terrified little eyes focused on the left side of them suddenly, and the man said, "Look, it wants to say hello to you." Immediately after this was said, the video abruptly cut off. The ending of the videos were all exactly the same thing. A red-tinted picture of a cross was shown in the background as the words, "Thanks for visiting," were displayed in white lettering at the top, with "Jesus loves you" being displayed at the bottom. Ever since this case, the city of Roebuck has gained some level of infamy in the state of Alabama. Even though the case was first opened in 1992, no further evidence of any murders has ever been found in the area. None of the children were ever identified, and ever since then, the old rusty trailer has been torn down, and now the area serves as the location of a children's playground. If you ever decide to visit there, I bet you'd be surprised at the number of wild rabbits that occupy the area. Strangely, they love playing with the children that go there, and a few of them even try to follow them home. Well, that hardly engenders trust in your fellow humans, does it? Maybe there is something to the old saying that ignorance is bliss. At least until you run into one of these fine folks. Have fun socializing, y'all. Stay scary, my wildlings. Keep that eye out for trouble, and make the most of your nights.